Welcome to the Bookish Spell, your cozy corner for all things bookish. I'm Angie, your host, and each week I'll be diving into the magical world of books, sharing reviews, author interviews, and so much more. New episodes drop every Wednesday, so grab a cup of coffee and get ready to turn the page with me.
Hi.
Oh, hello, Glorya. Welcome in.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, thank you.
Good. I'm glad to finally get to chat with you today.
Nice to formally meet you.
Yes, definitely. All right, my friend. Start off by telling us a little bit about your book. Let us know the title, where we can buy it at, and what kind is it.
All right, so my book is this one. It's A Soul's Journey Home. It is a book of poetry. It's available on Amazon, and I also sell signed copies on my TikTok shop on High Moon Publishing.
Mm.
The poetry is all based off of my life, so it's work that I've written about things that I've went through, trauma, domestic violence, love, things of that nature. Pretty much anything that you go through in life is in this book. But yeah, this was a labor of love, and it was actually not a book I was intending on publishing, but it ended up being my first book, and I'm really proud of it.
Amazing. Well, that's what I was going to ask you is what inspired you to write poetry? Was it just what you've been through?
Poetry is wild. It's something I've always used as a form of escape, just to be able to get through things that. And so I started collecting some that I was writing and decided, you know what, this makes a great book. And I thought it would be helpful for people who have maybe gone through similar situations. A lot of the stuff in the book are of things that people don't talk about, losing a child, SA, domestic violence, those types of things.
Right.
So there's a lot of hard-hitting stuff in there. And I thought that if I can take my pain and help somebody else in some form, then it would have all been worth it.
Beautiful. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
How would you describe your poetry in 3 words?
Raw, honest, and growth.
Beautiful. It's amazing. Have you always wanted to be a writer, or this is just something that?
Yeah, I have. It's my dream job, like most writers, I think.
Well, so how did you figure out, like, I'm very curious because I'm sure you wanted to be a writer to write some sort of story. Well, essentially, I mean, your poetry is your story, I guess you can say. But like, how did you come up with or decide to like write? I'm going to write this book of poetry versus.
I actually was working on a completely different project, which I'm still working on. That it's actually coming out next year in 2025, around Dia de los Muertos. I was working on that book, and while I was working on that book, I kept getting sidetracked and distracted because of things that were happening in my personal life. And so I started writing poetry in order to get those feelings out so that I can refocus on the book I actually wanted to write. So it was my form of releasing all of that tension and all of the heartache and just pretty much everything that has happened in my life that kind of came to like this tower moments. And I figured, well, it's written. I might as well put this out as well. I might as well use that trauma and that hurt to get into the field of writing and to become an author while still working on my other projects that I hope to have released soon.
Beautiful. So that's not like the first time I've heard something like this. I feel like it's a little bit of a theme I'm noticing. A lot of authors, they're working on one project, but during that process, they completely figure out or discover something else that they want to do or create, and like everything just flows really quickly. So I feel like their gateway of writing their first initial book is the gateway to like allowing all those thoughts or ideas to kind of flood through. It is amazing how like it's unique to me that I'm noticing that with a lot of authors. Like, you're not the first person to tell me like, hey, I'm working on this project. but what got my foot in the door was the one I created while working on this one, It's quite
Yeah,
amazing. It's
exactly.
really amazing. Super amazing. I had a question for you, but now I lost where. Oh, I want to know what is one of your favorite poems in your book, or maybe the one that's most personal to you?
Oh, that's hard because they are all really personal. There's a lot in the book that I've never actually
Mm-hmm.
had like, conversations with people about.
Wow.
Uh, it's
Mm-hmm.
really, but I think one, and that's about losing my little one during pregnancy,
I'm sorry.
and thank you. That was something that I kind of pushed off on grieving because I did immediately get pregnant with my other children right after, and then I lost another child directly after, and then got pregnant again. So it was something that was really traumatic for me at the time and still is, and something that I didn't get to actually grieve until recently. So that I think would probably be the one that touches my heart the most.
That's beautiful. Another thing I wanted to say is that it is kind of interesting, beautiful rather, people being able to read your poetry book and then like having this first initial project come out later next year. It's like almost like what I'm trying to say is like being able to read that next project and then knowing that you have this book of poetry. It's like watching you heal to create that whatever was in your head. It's actually a beautiful way. Um, I feel like to get your first like idea or whatever this book that you're wanting to write, it is kind of interesting to watch that healing process.
Yeah, and that's
Mm.
definitely what this first book was for me, was a process of healing just all life's traumas. And it's something
Beautiful.
that we all go through, we all have those things that we deal with and have to learn how to live with. And this book definitely helped that.
Mm-hmm. Are you self-published or did you have your poetry book traditionally published?
But I did have it published myself. And
Mm.
I go back and forth if I want to try to get traditionally published later. Sometimes I think I do, and then sometimes I don't. So I haven't figured that out yet.
That seems to be the answer for a lot of people, but that's just because you get more flexibility and freedom,
Yeah, I
publishing
really
yourself.
enjoy the freedom of being able to decide exactly how the book is going to be
Yeah,
written, how the editing goes, what pictures go into the book. I like having that control. And I don't know that I want to relinquish that. But the idea of being traditionally published also sounds cool. So, yeah, it's a give and
yeah.
take.
When the timing is right.
If it happens, it happens.
There you go. Do you have any like rituals that you do when it comes to starting to like writing, something you do before you kind of sit down and write, or environment you put yourself in? Like, what is it that you do to prepare to write? Or does it just kind of flow?
It's funny. The only thing that I have, I need snacks. I eat every time I write. That's probably not a good thing, but I always have to have like a plethora of snacks around me so that I don't get distracted. Otherwise, I'll get up and be
Yeah.
like, I'm thirsty, or I want something sweet or something salty. So I'll always have food around me, a whole bunch of variety, just so that I have something to eat while I'm writing. But that's just, like the only thing I really need when writing.
Nice. That's actually really good advice because thinking about it now, like when I'm editing a video or creating something or doing my day job, and I have to sit at my computer because I work from home, I will use every excuse in the book to get up. So having
Yes.
like snacks, drinks around me, I think I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, that seems to help me because anytime I decide, oh, I'm going to just start writing and I don't have food, it doesn't
Oh
work.
yeah,
I'll get up
yeah.
every few moments and I'll just be like, oh, well, I want to do this or whatever. But if I make
Mm.
sure I have plenty of food, yeah, I won't get up. I will write for hours all night. That's the best way to keep me focused. Give me a snack.
I love it. When you was writing your book of poetry, did did you write this in secret, or did friends or family members know that you was writing
It wasn't necessarily a secret. My mom knew. And I also I write on Medium, so I write articles and I write
it?
poetry on there. So I
Ooh,
was sharing some of the poems on that platform before I even decided to write the book. So it wasn't necessarily done in secret, and everyone knew I was working on a book, but they were expecting it to be the other one that is coming out next year. And so I think everyone was probably thrown off because they were like, "Oh, that's not the book we were expecting," but that's the one that was finished
ooh,
first, so that's what they got.
ooh. So can you tell us a little bit about this other book, or is it a
Oh
surprise?
yeah, absolutely. So that book is called Raven, and it's actually a zombie apocalyptic book. Now, I used
Oh,
to work at a juvenile detention center. I worked there for about 3 years. I started off as a correctional officer, and then I got promoted to be a program facilitator. So I found projects and things for the kids to do while we were there to help teach them and
nice.
kind of keep them preoccupied so that there were no, or limited fights. Um, and one thing I noticed when I was working there was how much the children just they lacked like self-love. They really believed that they were there because they weren't worth it. They believed that that's all that they had in store for them in life. And so the concept of the book came from working there. And I wanted to write a story about these juveniles that were in detention during a zombie apocalypse and how they rescue themselves and make it through the situation.
Oh, I love it. Well, that sounds pretty interesting and something very personal to you.
Yeah, it
Beautiful.
is. Plus, I love zombies.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Imagine.
gonna lie, every time when I used to work, we would talk about the time, like, what would we do for a zombie apocalypse if we were at work? And so that's kind of how the story started. Just
Yeah.
random conversations at work about zombie apocalypse, and the kids would bring it up to me sometimes and be like, "Oh, I wonder how, what would we do?" And I'd be like, "I got a whole story. I know exactly what we do." And that's how it started.
That's funny. That's pretty funny. I always have this like debate with a lot of my family members because I'm what everyone would call like a boot camp mom. So I have
Hmm.
two small kids right now, but I have 5 kids in total.
Oh wow.
My 3 bigger ones are with their dad right now, but they're teenagers, like 14, 13, 12. And now I have a
Hmm.
3-year old, 7-year old. So I have a lot. But my older kids, I was a boot camp mom. I'm like that with all my kids. Like, I want you to learn to tie your shoes, not to drink a bottle, to drink out of the cup, to know like, you can't run in the street, to do all these things at a really young age. And my mom's very coddling. And I think people in my family are to like, you could drink a pacifier until you're like 7. Like, no, that's not good. So I'm boot camp mom, and like my mom always used to get mad at me, my sister. And I would say, well, like we can have a zombie apocalypse tomorrow. We could all die tomorrow. And I need to know that if I die, my kids are gonna have a chance of surviving. It's like that always
That's
lingers in the back of my head.
Oh, that's funny because growing up, my siblings and I would talk about it all the time. Like, where would we go? What would happen if the how people come in, or we had to go out? Like, it was, yeah, it was something we talked about often. And even with my kids now, I have the 2 teenage children. We talk about it all the time.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. I've been a zombie obsessed since I was a kid. That's just one of those like stories that I think is, I don't know, universal.
It really is. So since you love zombies so much, do you like The Walking Dead?
Oh, I love The Walking Dead. Yeah. Well, I got all the way up to right when Negan was about to well, he ended up not dying, but spoilers, sorry. I got right at that point and then I stopped watching just because of
Did you
life,
finish it?
but I still want to finish.
So you never finished it?
No, I never finished it. I
Well, I
know.
have to finish it, but The Walking Dead kind of was like Grey's Anatomy for me. there was so many seasons. It got so dragged out that it wasn't fun to watch anymore, but you're just so invested in it that you just wanted to watch it till the end. So I don't feel
Yeah.
like you're really missing out on much, but like I feel like, the first like 3 seasons were the best seasons. And then really after that it was kind of, it's like, okay, I
I
want
know.
something to happen.
I got a little mad at the writing when Negan wasn't killed off. I was like,
Yeah.
really, Rick? Really? That I kind of just was like, I'll go watch The Big Bang Theory.
It just really, yeah, I mean, it's, you just gotta watch it. I had some,
I'll finish it eventually.
yeah, eventually. It's not one of those shows where I would have to tell you, like, oh, you gotta finish, you gotta see what happens. You're quite disappointed, to be honest. I think I just got really bored of it. So at one point, I really didn't care what happened to anybody anymore.
You're like, they can all go. It's all right.
I quite feel with Grey's Anatomy. Like, got so boring, but I'm still gonna watch it because I remember, like, was it last year? They said this was the grand finale, and now I'm seeing there's a new season. So I don't
I
know.
didn't even know it was still going. That's been on forever.
I've been watching it since I was a little kid, and it is boring, so boring. But I'm just one of those, like, I want to finish it. I wasted all this time watching it.
Might as well.
So I do have a question for you about your writing.
Okay.
Did you like take any writing courses or classes? Or is there anything that you would recommend for anyone who's an inspiring author?
Not really. Writing for me has always been like a labor of love. I hated school as a kid. I've always loved
Uh-huh.
learning, but I hated school because I didn't like teachers and I didn't like being told what to do, one of those kids. So the only class I ever really enjoyed was writing. I liked to write. Now I never let anyone know that I liked their writing classes, but I enjoyed it. So for me, the only advice I could say is if you love doing it, just do it. Don't give up, just keep going. No matter if you think your stories suck or if you don't like your own writing, the more you write, the better it gets. And read a bunch, because the more reading you do, the more inspiration you get, the more you see how other people write, and you can learn that way by reading other people's works, people that you enjoy. So honestly, the best thing I could say is keep reading and just keep writing, and let whatever happen happen.
That's some amazing advice. Do you like to read a lot?
I do. My kids say I'm a nerd.
Aw. All right. So what is your
Make fun
favorite
of me all
genre?
the time.
What is your favorite genre? Are you like multiple?
I don't know that I have a favorite genre, to be
Mhm.
honest. For the longest time, I read just nonfiction. I was into just like psychology papers.
Oh,
Um, and then recently, I just kind of started reading everything to try to find my favorite genre, but I haven't picked one yet. I don't know exactly what my favorite is. I kind of like everything. Like it can be a little kid story and it can be or something
oh.
like super crazy and like smutty, and I would
Mhm.
still like all of them. I haven't found anything where I'm just like, oh, this really sucks.
Yeah,
So
I
my
agree
favorite is
with that.
everything.
I agree with that. I feel like that would be my answer too. I used to
Yeah.
think for the longest time that I just love fantasy, but I actually don't. I feel like I'm kind of outgrowing fantasy a bit, where I still like some fantasy stories, but honestly, I hate saying this, sometimes they're a little hard to get through. Um, I'm liking like a little bit more thriller, romance, recently dark romance. Uh, but then like I came to terms like I think I just like all genres. I think I just like reading words in general because when I read a
Yeah.
book,
Okay. Yeah. Exactly.
like when I read a book, obviously I love the story. Yes, that's why I'm reading it. But I love like I guess I have these debates with myself and thoughts as I'm reading. Like so interesting how a human mind came up with this. Like I'm more
Yeah.
passionate about the writer who wrote this book. Like it's huge for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly. Now, I
Mhm.
think because I love psychology so much, and before
Mhm.
deciding, what I'm going to try being an author, my goal was to go to school and be a therapist.
Good.
That's what I wanted to do. But now when I read books, one of the things that I notice the most is like how in awe I am of the author, because whatever story you're reading came from someone's mind. Somebody had to think that up. And to me, it's just so cool. It's completely fascinating what stories each individual person can come up with. I don't know, I love the idea of reading something and knowing that came from somebody and whatever they had to do to get that onto the paper. That to me is just cool. Just in general, the whole writing, thinking, and reading process of it all to me is so amazing that I just love all books.
So do you have a favorite book?
Ah, I used to say it was Running Blind by Lee Child, and that was because that was the first book that really got me interested in reading stories as a teenager. Oh, but now I don't know. I don't know if I have like a favorite. I do love the book Hell House. I cannot remember who the author is. There's like two authors on that book. And that's a book of like true haunting stories. I just love things paranormal related, scary related. And that book is probably the book that I've read the most. I don't almost yeah, pretty much. I almost never reread books. I reread a few of them, but that one I've read multiple times, and so I'm
Really?
assuming that means it's my favorite.
That's something I want to try to read soon, is like a horror book. I
Mhm.
haven't, the closest I got to scary is lately like some thrillers. Like, but I'm sure you probably know. I read that but Haunting Adeline. That
Uh-huh.
was about as scary as I read when it comes to like, I don't know, I was actually scared that someone was at my windows for a while because I was reading. But I want to read like something scary.
See, me too. And for me, the scariest thing is real life. So when I read those real life haunting stories, I'm just like, dude, that is crazier than anything made up that I've ever read. So I love it. I haven't read a horror book yet that's made me just like totally freak out. And I want to so bad. Like, so
Ooh, I
bad.
want to read a scary book.
I would
Ooh,
love to read something that just really scares me. I think the last like I guess horror book I read was Pearl
mm,
by Josh Mallerman. I thought the book was funny. So I don't know. I loved the book, but to me it wasn't horror. It was just funny. It was cool. It was a cool book. I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. It was one of my
um,
favorite reads for the year, but it just wasn't horror. So I want someone to recommend me a book that is going to scare the heck out of me and I won't be able to sleep for
right?
like months.
I'm gonna work. I'm gonna work on finding that because I keep thinking like, do I just go with the obvious choice and read a Stephen King? But
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't think he's that scary either. Don't get me wrong. I love his writing. No, don't come at me. I think he's great,
my
but
sister
not
read it.
scary.
My sister read it, the book. She said it was pretty scary, but I feel like already seeing the movie, like how I'm not, I don't know. I just feel like that type is not going to scare me. I don't know. Maybe it's different. Maybe the book's different.
It might. I do always hear that the book is better, but the book is so long.
I know it's such a thick book. My
I
sister,
think my
it's only like
ADHD can handle that. It'll take me years to finish that book.
no. Why is that? Do you ever do that? Like when a book is super long, I end up reading slower. But when a book is
Yeah.
like 400 pages, I could get through that in 2 days. But just my
Hmm.
brain tells me when it's a 700 page book, I read like 2, 3 pages here and 2, 3 pages there because I feel like I'll never
No,
get through
yeah.
it.
Exactly the same. I actually have this book that I love. It was like one of my very first fantasy or sci-fi
Mhm.
fantasy books. I love that book and I got halfway through and I haven't been able to finish it yet. And I started this book months ago. And it kills me because I want to know what happens and I want to read it, but every time I sit down to read it, like my brain is just like, "No, you're done." And I don't know why because I love the book. The book is so great and I just have not been able to finish it yet. That's not on the
Oh,
author.
no.
That's on me. That's on my brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always feel so bad that I don't finish it because I'm like, this author is fantastic, but my brain is just
Mhm.
not letting me keep going. I gotta stop.
Mhm. I did that a few times, but like I guess my OCD or ADHD, something gets the best of me and I will power through a book. I only like after one book ever. And that was only because I listened to the audio and I knew I shouldn't have. I should have. I'm gonna try to read it, but it was a Twisted Games or Twisted that whatever one in that Anna Hung collection. It's like Twisted Games, Twisted Love, and something else to call. It's a muddy romance book. The only thing why I DNF'd it is because the male voice gave me the ick, and I just could not listen to the guy talking. It made me gag. That's the
That
only
makes
book
sense,
I ever.
though.
It was not. So that's the only book I ever like didn't finish. Whether I like a book or not, for some reason, like I have to finish it because there was plenty of books that I'll give you example. The Silent Patient from what is his name? Alex. I forgot his name. Book's called The Silent Patient. I'm gonna be honest. His writing is a little boring, but his ability to write a plot twist at the end that gets your jaw on the floor makes up for the lack of fun reading the entire book. I read other books from him. And then it's things like that makes me like not, DNF a book. Because if I would have DNF that book, I would have never had that different perspective of that author if I didn't know what happened at the end.
Yeah.
So the one book that I ever DNF'd, eventually I'm going to read it. I just DNF'd it because it was audio.
I know. I never considered like fully DNFing a book. I put it back on my TBR with the bookmark still in it, so I know where I was, and then eventually I get back to it.
Oh,
But it takes me a long time to get back to it. I haven't actually DNF'd a book yet, like where I'm like, no, for sure, 100% not gonna finish it yet. But I don't know. It might happen one day.
Maybe as I become a more seasoned reader and know exactly what I like and don't like. I don't know. But I just like my brain cannot. I will think about that book for days and weeks and months to come. If I don't finish it, I'm gonna feel like it's a task that I didn't complete. So crazy.
Makes sense.
Mhm. So was Pearl your favorite book this year to read, or what is your favorite read?
Ooh, I have a few. I really loved an ARC read that I did or an alpha read, and that was ODM. And that was my first dark romance. And so I don't know if it's because I wasn't like I've never read a dark romance before that I just was so captivating to me. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, where has this been? So I really love that one. So that's definitely up there. And then there was the Auschwitz Photographer, which was based on the Holocaust. And that was a really tough read, but I love history, so that's obviously up there for me. The story itself was hard to read sometimes, but it was written really well, and it was really interesting to see the perspective of somebody who was in an internment camp. Um, and the Holocaust is just one of those things that I've always had an interest in since I was a kid. So that book's way up there for me. That's probably one of the best books I've read all year. But those two books, I think, are the ones I think of the most, or the ones that I continually think of since reading.
I'm gonna have to check out that one about the Holocaust. That's something I'm always was interested in too.
Yeah, it's a really good read. And it actually, at the end of the book, tells you what happened to the people who were in the story. Because the story is written about, real life. And so it tells you exactly what happened, like who goes to jail, who doesn't. It tells you who died, who didn't. Like, and that for me was like, I don't know, it hit me totally different because you wonder every time you read a story like that, what happened? And you actually get to find out the real life events of what happened. And for me, that was just crazy.
Wow.
And it really just like, even now it's still, I haven't done my review on the book yet because I'm so in awe of the book that I don't know how to give it a review that it deserves. So I've waited like a good 2 weeks, and I'll probably wait another 2 weeks before I figure it out because I want to make sure that I give it the justice that it deserves. Because that book, wow, just wow.
Oh, I'm gonna have to read that.
Yeah. Definite recommend.
Nice, thank you. I'm gonna check that one out. Have you ever read about Hitler and what he done? I know
I have, but not books, more like I when I was a kid, I used to love the History Channel. And so I would go like on the history website and stuff like that. And I would read that kind of stuff, or I would read bits about history just from like searching the web because this is stuff I found it fun. I get made fun of, but for me it was fun. But that was my first actual book about the Holocaust that I sat down and read. And so maybe that's why it was so captivating for me. But yeah, I've always liked to look up stuff like that and read articles about it. But that was my very first book about it. And so I know a lot about his history, but I've never read one of the books, mainly because they get me so mad. He gets me mad.
I don't think I can handle reading the book, but there was this website that lists every one of his experiments that he tried on people. So essentially, what he was doing, and I feel like not many people know this, essentially his goal was to create a indestructible army. So he got all these people that he ended up killing because he was running tests on them. So there's one that kind of, I don't know, it always stands out to me because it's so inhumane. He put a group of, I forgot what they were. I mean, he put them on a boat, people. He put them on a boat essentially to be his army or whatever, his men. He put them on a boat with no food, no water, on the salty seas. With the only thing that they had to survive is he made them inject themselves with sea water, like ocean water. Because he wanted to see if he could create an indestructible army that can last underwater with just salt water. No food, no purified water, nothing. Like it's so, I don't know.
It makes you think about where that, I mean, obviously his mind was not in a good place.
Yeah.
But even fish need food. They don't just live on the water. How did he think that that was gonna work?
He didn't
That man
care.
was an idiot.
He
That's
wanted
crazy.
to test it out because he wanted to be a type of person like he found something that he wanted an indestructible army. I mean, that's why he had all the kids from Holocaust. He wanted to groom them to be pure German, so he could have like this purity of the land and these indestructible people, and groom them to only fight for Germany. And it's actually really messed up.
Oh yeah, and that book, the Auschwitz photographer actually talks about some of the experiments, and it actually has some real life photographs of the people that were having experiments done to them, because that's what the photographer did. He was in charge of taking all the pictures on the camp. So yeah, they do talk about some of that stuff on there. But yeah, that's insane to me that anybody would ever harm people to try to make them better for their own personal gain. It's, I don't know, completely wild to me that people could be that horrendous.
That's
Not surprising, but
that's true. But that's
it's bad.
exactly what they did. Because if you like all of the videos, you don't have like those videos on the internet of Holocaust survivors talking about their time, and they were small kids. They never really could say that they had physical abuse, like were beat up. It's mainly like they didn't know what was going on. They had a needle here, a poke here. They were unconscious for so many days and went back to their room or whatever. I don't know what experiments he was running on the kids, but maybe that's something I'll look up. But it's very strange for me. And then the whole like how he disappeared, and well, here's the disappeared. But he killed him, his wife, and his children. Just they killed themselves.
Yeah. Although there was that one show where what was it, Finding Hitler, where they said that it wasn't actually him who killed himself and that he had went to South America or something like that. I don't know how much of all that is true, but I hope it's not true. I really hope he does. Like the thought that he would have lived out the rest of his life infuriates me. I really hope that he did meet his end.
You have to look at it from this perspective. He probably did live out his life, I believe, because was a very super extremely selfish man. And I don't think his plan B would be just to end him and his family's life. He would
I don't
he would
think so
kill his wife
either.
and children, no problem. I could see him doing that, sacrificing his wife and his children. But I feel that his death was fake. I do. Because you look into the mind and like reading all this stuff that he did, I can't see any other way than him just faking his death. There's no way. I think he
Yeah,
did.
and I'm sure back then it was easier to do than it would be now.
Get social security card, birth certificate, the whole new identity. Probably wasn't that hard for him. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
and they did
really.
falsify documents, so it would have been really easy for him to falsify his like his own new documents.
Mm-hmm. Just when
But
you
I'm
read
still
about,
hoping that he died. I don't know that
see,
he
I
did,
mean,
but I hope he did.
there's a possibility that he's dead now, but I don't
That's
think
not
he
good
is.
enough.
No. Oh, it's quite a traumatizing story for me.
Yeah, no, it really is. It is. That whole situation is horrific.
Mhm. No, it is. So do you have any hobbies that you like to do outside of writing?
I got a bunch.
Yeah.
I love gardening. I did homesteading for a long time. I love canning, which I haven't done in forever. I love cooking and baking. I love sewing. I used to make purses and sell them. Um,
Girl.
and then, of course, like the whole spending time with your family, and I got like a million dogs, like all that stuff. So I like to do everything. I love to draw and color, and I love art and making things. So I do everything. A
Nice.
little bit of everything.
Can you tell me a little bit about the homestead? That's like me and my
Oh,
sister's
sure.
goal.
Okay, so I used to live in California, and we lived up in the foothills, and we had a little homestead there. And we had a pretty large garden, two of them actually. Um, we probably had between 50 to 100-ish plants every single year. We would grow maybe 40 to 50% of our own food. I'd still have to go to the grocery store because I'm not going to make my own wheat. But
Mm.
but yeah, we would grow a lot of our own food. I did a lot of canning, so we would preserve food throughout the year. Um, it was really a nice time. I was able to teach my kids that, how to grow things and how to take care of animals. We had chickens and rabbits, and
Wow.
at one point we had like 36 rabbits. They were meat rabbits, poor babies, but I mean,
Oh, they
they
weren't enough. Aw.
they were. Yeah. But I learned how to butcher my own meat and how to do all that stuff, and it's a nice life when you have someone to be there to help you with it, because doing it on your own is not very easy. I
Mhm.
wish I could do it now, but I don't have the time for it. But I would love to have that again, to be able to be like my own little homestead. I do live on a little ranch, so I would like to get chickens again and add to my gardening area. Right now we have like a little vineyard and some fruit trees. So I would like to have a large garden at some point. Start all over.
Love it.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually love that life.
I hope to live that lifestyle one day. That's like me and my
It's
sister's
great.
goal.
Yeah, no, I definitely recommend it if you have the land and the time to put into your property. The
I
time is
don't.
the hardest thing, it's that
Oh,
time.
really?
'Cause it's like a full-time job, making
Right.
sure your garden is set, your animals are taken care of, having to, just cook nonstop because you're freezing things and baking things and canning things. But I used to love it. Like I used to have all kinds of desserts in my freezer because I would do like a baking day, and so I had like cheesecake and muffins and just all kinds of stuff. And I would have like an entire month of menu so that everyone knew what we were eating every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yeah.
I used to love doing all that stuff, but I had more time. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, so
Yeah.
it was it was something that I was able to do, and now I'm
Mhm,
not.
mhm. Well, that's so
But
cute.
one day I'll get back to it.
I mean, it probably was so nice too, knowing exactly what you're eating, what you're putting in your
Oh,
food.
yeah, it was. And since I love cooking so much and baking, like it was fun for me. I really enjoyed it. I used to have a little YouTube channel. I think it's still up. I don't think I ever took it down. That where I would do my canning. I showed my canning the first time. I was all proud of myself. I used to make my own like jalapeno peppers and my
Oh.
own jams. It was great. Like it was a
Mhm.
nice time with my kids because I homeschooled also. So that was a lot of fun to be able to be with them and teach them and kind of show them,
Mhm.
everything about life. It was
Mhm.
great. It was a really beautiful time.
During the pandemic, as you can imagine, there was nothing else for anyone to do. That's why everyone started making sourdough. Do you remember?
I do remember that. Sourdough and buying a ridiculous amount of toilet paper. Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, I was here in Arizona. We have a big house in the mountains and just can't go nowhere. Um, I used to watch YouTube videos, read, watch Netflix, and then, like you can only sit in a room and watch TV so much. So I would cook something. And before the pandemic, I can fully admit that I was not a cook. Now I could become like be your 5-star chef now. That was the one good thing that came out of the pandemic for me. um, but I think about that all the time. I didn't really think about it in the moment. I should have posted all that on social media. I posted zero. But I made every bread. I made a mission to make every bread you can pretty much think of. I mean, I made sourdough, regular bread, baguette. I made ciabatta bread. I made English muffins. I made tortillas. I'm sure there was a couple other breads that I didn't think of, but I made every bread, everything I was doing from scratch. Butter, when I made cheesecake, everything was from scratch, even down to the crust was scratch. I made my own cream cheese. I made mozzarella. It got to the point where there was nothing else for me to make like the homemade complex type of stuff. I started to make hot sauce. And then I wanted to make my own beer. And I didn't get around to
Oh,
doing that.
nice. I want to make my own wine because we have like a small little vineyard. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do my own wine one day. And so I started looking it up and I was like, do I really want to make my own wine though? Sounds like a lot of work.
No, well, I mean, you gotta keep an eye on it, but there's a really easy way to do it is you just get yourself a big jar, a glass jar, you put it in there, and all you need is a freaking balloon. And you
A
can,
balloon?
yes, you, like a regular balloon, like you use for a birthday party, like a latex balloon, you poke a little hole in it, was it? Yeah. You poke a little pinhole with a needle. You put that balloon over, so you want like a jar that has a smaller mount, put the balloon over there, and the balloon helps with the gas, which
Oh,
creates the
okay.
fermentation. So it acts like I don't know what those things are called. That things that you do put that
Yeah.
that the gas. I don't know. Sure, those things cost a lot of money. But a guy done it with a simple balloon, and he just put watermelon, and he made watermelon wine. So I always wanted to
Nice.
try it, but I never did it. Um, yeah, I do love making like everything from scratch. I was laughing when you were saying about the wheat because that was one thing I wanted to do. Um, and like I remember watching this girl, some girl I watched on Instagram. She grinds her own flour. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna look this up on Amazon. I'm gonna get me one of these. It was a freaking $1,000 for this little wooden thing that you put in there.
Yeah, I know. I'll just buy my flour at the store.
I mean, I learned a lot because I try to do more like organic. But for my kids, especially my son has autism. So in my mind, like something organic, not full of sugar, artificial dyes. I try to stay away from that. Um, I did learn because I guess all my life I bought regular bleached flour. Now I don't buy that. That's something I learned through the pandemic. Now I just buy unbleached flour. I didn't even know that was a thing before the pandemic. So I don't know. It's fun.
It is fun. I agree. I wish I had time to just do all that stuff again.
I know, right? Maybe because I work from home. So like when everyone was like all crying about the pandemic, I'm like, this is my normal. I like being home.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
a
what I'm always
homebody.
I wish I could be home all the time. I enjoy being home. When people
I
ask
love
me to go out, I'm just like, I can be home though, by myself. with a book. I don't really want to go out with you.
Yeah, I love being home too, but maybe it's because like I have so many like things I could be doing, reading, watching a TV show, making something, doing something on my laptop, uh, creating content for my social media. There's always like something to do, so it's never like, oh, I'm bored. Let me leave the house. I could literally stay in this house for a good 2 weeks straight and not. I'm good.
If I had food delivered, I could probably just be
I
here
do that
forever.
too,
Like, I'm
girl.
not even kidding. Like,
I do
I don't need
that.
to go.
I don't grocery shop no more. We get delivery from Safeway.
And I live in the mountains, and like next to a river, so it's just like I got plenty of hiking. I could just go walk around. I don't have to like talk to
It's nice.
people. I'm okay. I got my
Mhm.
dogs. They keep me company.
Exactly.
My kids talk a lot, so there you go. There's my conversation.
It's so bad how much of a homebody I am that my husband's very concerned with that. Like when we need something, uh, and I'm telling him, can you go get this or can you get that? Well, why don't you go? No, I'm good. Well, you haven't got out of the house and da, 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 you should go. I'm like, no, I'm good.
I like it here. I know exactly what you mean. I'm exactly the same.
I know. It's funny.
If I could stay home all the time, I would.
I know, right? It is so like sometimes it's a bit concerning how comfortable I am in my own home. That I'm like, there's not 1 ounce of me that's like, I'm gonna go out today. Like, I have no concern.
I know. I think that's a good thing. I enjoy that I'm comfortable in my own home. Like, I love being home. Like, why wouldn't I want to be home? I got everything I need here.
Exactly right. That is exactly what goes through my head. Why wouldn't I want to be home? I do got everything I need here. There ain't nothing I need outside.
I do get like a traveling itch every once in a while, like because I live in New Mexico and I used to live in California and I love driving. So sometimes I'm just like, let's go to California and let me drive. And
That's
so
right with
that
you.
but that's more like travel. I don't know. I don't count that as going out. I might want to
Yeah,
travel. Sometimes I'll
that's
do that.
different.
But other than that, I'll be home all the time.
Yep, that's totally different. I'm the same way. I love travel. I want to go to Disneyland at least twice a year. Take my kids. But other than that, yep, I like to stay home. So traveling doesn't count. You're right. I
Exactly.
forgot you're in New Mexico. You're not that far. That's where my mom is and my sister.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, I moved here because of my mom too. She's actually from here. And then
Really?
she moved to California where she met my dad. And then we all grew up there. And then she came back here. And then now that
Mm-hmm.
they're older, I care for them. So I came back here too. So
Mm,
now I'm with my parents.
good.
Not in
I
the
mean, I
same
like
house,
New Mexico.
but
Yeah.
same area.
At least you're not too far. You could drive to them, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, real close. They're like up the street.
Okay, good. I like New Mexico. I don't know. I like it there, but I think I just like desert. I don't know. Something about the
I like
desert.
the open space. Like I like
Mm-hmm.
that there's so much hiking. You don't really got to go anywhere. You can just walk outside. Like I
Mm-hmm,
don't
hmm.
have to like travel to hike. I can just hike. So I like that
I
a
hope
lot.
it's hard. Yeah. I
I
think I
like that
like.
I'm far away from people.
Yeah, really. I don't know. Is there something about the flat lands? I guess right. It's just so like calming for me. I don't know.
Just
Feels like
relaxing. That.
yeah. I always tell people like the desert, especially here in Phoenix, that if they ever been to Florida and that vacation vibe you get when you like in Orlando. I can't say Miami. I never been to Miami, but like when you're in Orlando, it's like vacations, and if you step out of the car, or plane, or whatever, I feel that every single day in Phoenix. Like it's something like with the air, this the energy, the way it feels, like you just tell. Like Phoenix is like a vacation town for some reason for me. So I just
Really? Only person I've ever met that actually is like happy to be in Arizona.
know. I don't know what it is, but I love Arizona.
My sister lived there and she was like, I'm leaving. I'm out. She went back to California.
I guess it depends where you live. I don't spend much time in actually like the downtown Phoenix. That's no. But like the whole like the Glendale area, Scottsdale, those are nice. And I like being in those parts. So I know the downtown Phoenix is not as ugly. It's not. I don't know. And maybe because I'm always in the outskirts too. I like just being in the desert, which is weird because I lived in Seattle for the last 4 years. So it's a huge difference from a desert to a giant rainforest, you know?
Yeah. No, I heard Seattle was really pretty. I've always wanted to go there.
It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. There's so much to do. Like you can be a tourist in your own town every single day. So it is really nice. But it's hard to live there with kids. So
It's hard to live almost anywhere with kids.
I guess that's true. I guess so. It was hard because I have my two small ones, and then we were like living in a small downtown. And then like people are busting the windows.
Oh, wow.
So it got scary to where you're scared and you're that when my husband wasn't home, like I'm constantly on guard. I would like have my phone with me unlocked at all times of the night, just in case I got to call 911.
Oh no, that's horrible.
Yeah, it was scary. We used to take turns sleeping in shifts. Like you had people like do their drugs right in front of our door, literally in front of the door. Like I'm thinking that they're hiding from the rain, and like this guy was there for like a long time, probably about over an hour. And I'm like, why is he still there? So I go and like open the window. He has like his briefcase, with all his drugs and stuff, and he's like shooting needles and busting glass. I don't know why he had to break the glass, but like whatever he was doing. And like you called the police, and they're like, well, at least he cleaned up his mess. I'm like, okay, thank you. It's scary. So that's what I mean. Like, it's hard living there with kids, at least for me, because like the outside freaks me out. There's so much drugs on the street that the city was suing. People were suing the city because their dogs were dying from taking them for a walk and then eating something off the street and dying because it was like whatever that's called, fentanyl.
Yeah.
It was really bad. So like I would have this panic. I think maybe this is me overthinking or having intrusive thoughts. I'd have this panic like if the kids walk on the streets of downtown Seattle, we're going to take the shoes in the house. And even though I'm going to take them off the door, what if the kids get to the bottom of the shoes and there's drugs on there and then the kids, don't make it? Like it was, I used to panic. It was so stupid. It just, when the stuff that you see and then you think about just the streets of Seattle freak me out. There was like no way around it because you have to walk out there.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, sure was. So, well, Gloria, I know I kept you for a long time.
It's okay. I had fun.
Sometimes ramble, hence the reason why I started a podcast. But congratulations on your poetry book, and I hope your official novel out soon. I'll definitely reading your poetry. I haven't had a chance to, but I do want to read it and see what you have to say.
Thank you. Well, this was really fun. Thank you so much for having me on here.
You take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Bookish Spell. I hope you enjoy our magical bookish journey together. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to leave a review. It really helps. I'll be back next Wednesday with more enchanting stories and author insights. Until next time, keep the magic alive in your hearts and on your bookshelves.